Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a full analysis video on the lore and Easter eggs behind the new Overwatch map, Horizon Lunar Colony. We'll go through every new voice line, of which there are 4 for Winston and 1 for almost every other hero. We'll go through all the map's secrets, we'll examine the story that this map reveals, and there was even going to be a part in this video in which we would have nerded out on a little bit of science to both praise and criticize Blizzard. But this video was already too long, so I've edited out those parts and I'm making them into a new video which will go up tomorrow. We'll start with a fly-through of the map examining the lore. The Defender's spawn room and the Attacker's spawn room are both very different, and we're starting right now in the Defender's spawn room. You can see over here a satellite that's undergoing some maintenance. You have some panels over here and a rover in this bay over here that exits out onto the lunar surface. We'll do a full deep analysis of what we see on these displays in our next video, but right now, what's of note to us for lore purposes is this gravitational wave section. The exclamation mark here might be alerting us to some anomalies happening with gravitational waves. Gravitational waves are a pretty new science, and so it's possible that either there's some breakthrough going on right now on the moon in Overwatch, something that could potentially lead to some form of new technology, or there's something bad about to happen relating to gravity, possibly black hole type stuff. Continuing our fly-through of what is the maintenance area, or maintenance bay, we exit out to Bay 12, leaving the spawn room, and emerging into the final capture point. Here we have another rover, and another exit onto the lunar surface. This is Bay 12. From here you can see some more panels off to the side, and all these rover panels are the same. They're simply detailing some specifications about the rover. In this case we're examining tire pressure. We then have exits to hydroponics, and we'll start by going over to this right room over here, in which we can find a number of email interactions. Starting with this side over here, we're going to see some familiar messages. Here we have a message from Patel saying, "Can someone check the noise in the break room? It's past bedtime, 8:50 p.m. At 9:12, Nevsky replies, "It was Simon and Hypatia causing trouble. I tell you, Simon has been an absolute handful lately. I mean, more than usual. I'm confining him to his room and we can figure out what to do with him in the morning." If we go over to the other messages now, this seems to be the following day at 2:19 p.m. and that is a lot of glare. We have Scientist Winston, Human Scientist Winston, saying, "All hands report to Airlock E35. Jung replies, "What happened? Are you okay?" Winston replies, "I need help at Airlock E35 immediately." And that's the rest of that familiar message. This was the final message at 2:22 p.m. before the station went dark, before the guerrilla uprising. We can scroll over to see if there are any other messages. Here we have a video message that unfortunately we cannot play. I would have loved to find out what that said. And if we go over to this console, we can see an activity log, which is basically your mail inbox. And here again we see some familiar messages from Flora's strange noises and ventilation system. Yoshida has some missing tools, and Nevsky has concerns about Simon's behavior. And that covers everything that's not redundant in here. Now, as we move on, we eventually make our way into the Hydroponics Lab. Hydroponics refers to a method of growing plants without soil, instead using mineral nutrients in water. Hydro is an English prefix meaning water, and ponos is a Greek root meaning labor. So water here is doing the work. Hydroponics are very common in science fiction. It is basically necessary for any space station or extraterrestrial colony on a world without plants. Here we see oxygen levels being measured. We've got plants everywhere. We're seeing a lot of familiar displays, and there's not too much new to be learned here. We're seeing familiar messages. We're seeing the same displays we saw in that little lab. And really the biggest message here is simply that the lunar colony is self-sustaining. It can produce its own oxygen, and because it's growing plants, it could also produce its own food. This is how the gorillas were able to survive here on their own all these years. Onwards into the training facility. Here we have a hydroponic tank. Nothing really new, it's just a tank where you're growing the plants. More consoles that have the same displays. But then we have this little room over here where we can find one new console. We see Earth and we see Initialize Sequence. Exiting this room and heading onward to the training facility, we see a jungle gym for gorillas. We've got hanging tires, we've got rock climbing walls, we have ladders, and this is actually the first control point to capture on this map. And once you have captured this point, then the attackers unlock this additional spawn room, which we're going to magic through the door, and here we are. Here we see a bunch of spacesuits for each of the scientists aboard this station, with one, human Winston's, being markedly absent. Now, one thing that's important to note is that these spacesuits are very human-shaped and human-sized, and there's no way that Gorilla Winston could wear this. So what could this mean? Does this mean that Scientist Winston was wearing this spacesuit when he called all hands on deck for the emergency at the airlock? Was he wearing this while trying to repair the airlock? Was he coming back from a spacewalk when the airlock stopped working? Or are there other reasons why the spacesuit is missing? Now, the other thing that is worth noting in this room is these seem to be the vents. Maybe. The ceiling here is all messed up, and we've heard reports of noises coming from the ventilation system. Now look how small that is, if that is a vent. We know that Hammond, the specimen that is missing, is a smaller type of creature than the other gorillas. We don't know what kind of animal he can be, if he's maybe just a smaller type of ape. But if that is the size we're dealing with, that definitely puts some restrictions on what kind of animal he can be. Even a chimpanzee doesn't seem like it can fit in there. We might even be dealing with a monkey instead of an ape. Maybe something small like a spider monkey that is actually able to crawl around in these small areas. But then would it have the force to bust out of things like this? Lots of questions raised by this room, by whatever the devs are trying to tell us with these clues. Leaving this area, we go around to here, we see some more familiar displays, and now we head into this bigger open area where we see Gorilla Daycare. You can see paw prints here, but based on the size of these little things, you'd think that these were used more when the gorillas were younger. You see little baby toys, effectively, some rockets that are familiar. Again, Winston as a baby was very fond of rockets. And we can see here a drawing, possibly made by Winston, who knows, it could be any of the gorillas really. But given its rocket base, that certainly does hint towards it being Winston's drawing. And again, you can see the paw prints all over the place, leading to different areas. They don't seem to be going in any particular direction, and it seems to be multiple apes that have made these prints. The blackboard, even when flipped around, still says nothing. We have a little display over here where it appears to be some form of skill testing game, testing the intelligence of the apes. We have scanning in progress, 52% complete, downloading data, class alpha, and you gain a score. It's one of those baby games where you have to match the shapes to the holes. And if we go up here, you can also make your way through the steps here, but we see that the glass here is shattered. There's some of these Rubik's dodecahedrons, or whatever they might be, scattered about. Some more familiar displays, nothing new here, but we are seeing now the airlock, and we'll get to those airlocks a little bit later. We're going to finish exploring the rest of this area first, but you can see that the two airlocks are very close together, and they actually lead to the same external area. Here we have a blue padded room, which I don't know if this was like a holding cell or what. There don't seem to be doors here. Certainly a bizarre room with no console that's currently on. And here we have the little school. We have the lexicograms, which play a very important role for Winston. You can see that Winston has a lexigram spray. Winston spray specifically focused on these 9 squares, starting with the circle on the top left and finishing with the, I don't know, sort of starbursts in the bottom right. Lexicograms are basically symbols representing words. And it's certainly bizarre that one of them just says peanut butter. Kind of defeats the purpose of a lexigram. Here we have a poster for this actual moon colony. And then we have the little baby chairs for baby gorilla school. We've got more tests. We have more of the same drawings repeated here. There is nothing interesting behind this teacher station, just more of the same consoles. Again, the blackboard doesn't have anything on it. More of the same consoles. And with that, we leave this little training area. And we can see that some regions have certainly been blocked off. Some of the doors as well, you'll see that the locks have been destroyed. Part of the station has been trashed. In fact, the more we get away from the defender spawn and the closer we get to the attacker spawn, the more this station is trashed. From this little school area, we can go around here into the break room, basically. And by some miracle, the vending machines have not been shattered. You can see salt and pepper, and we got these little Roombas always going around the area, cleaning things up. We got the peanut butter here, we got the stove, oven, and then you can see these little packages here. These are pretty typical of, quote, astronaut food. Vacuum-packed, dehydrated food. It keeps really well in space. I remember going to space camp as a kid and having some dehydrated strawberries. And they weren't half bad. It's kind of like the strawberries you find in breakfast cereal. And then over here we see finally a new console, Horizon Lunar Colony, with a directory. And we have every one of these scientists listed. And it seems that Jang is highlighted, and that's possibly his location being highlighted by that circle, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because apparently all the scientists were murdered, unless that's just where his corpse is. But these numbers here just sort of seem to be extension numbers, like if you want to reach a specific individual. We know that these refer not to the gorillas, but to the scientists. Now, off to the side here, we have another little break room. Nothing particularly of note. You can see in the distance there the label Horizon on the station itself. And there's one little room that we've neglected visiting up to now, and that's because it's a special little room, and we're going to go take a look. So right over here, you can see this area is very trashed. Things are tossed about. Again, nothing new just yet, until we get into this little room here that should start looking familiar to you guys. We've got the lexicograms. We've got the little model rocket. We've got the peanut butter on the bed. This was Winston's room. Baby Winston. Well, I guess as well as he grew up. But, yeah, this is Winston's room. Now, exiting this room, there's two areas left to explore. One of which is the Observatory. This is the attacker spawn. And, again, we're seeing the same consoles here, but there's some major big stuff in here. If we go up through here, again, just a lot of repetition for now, but you're already seeing it right here. That telescope is the major feature that is left to take a look at, as well as this area here, in fact. So if we come down here, you can see the portrait of Winston and Winston, and then on these consoles here, I wish we could unpause these videos. But here we see the gorillas. We see the gorillas. We see things going on here. These gorillas are mad. They are angry gorillas. So what are we seeing in these images? Well, let's start with this one all the way on the left. This ape over here, you can see the number on her shoulder. That's 20. That is Susan. That is Specimen Susan. We know that because we have that specimen status tracking image with all of their names next to their specimen numbers. Now we have this sinister looking specimen down here, and we can't quite see his number, but he has those big ol' ears. Could that be a chimpanzee? Gorillas typically don't have such big ears, but it could just be artistic direction taken by the Overwatch team, because even this specimen here has big ol' ears. If we see over here, one of these apes is just lounging about after making a mess in the kitchen. This one here seems to be eating from the garbage. Then we have one that seems to be putting on a dress. And the other, is that a smaller specimen? No, it's hard to tell right now. But if we go over here, this seems to be 23. The one who stole this dress and put it on over here C23 is Hypatia. So either there are multiple apes wearing dresses, or otherwise these security footage tapes are not being played in order. And this one is curiously off. And then we go to the final one where we see 26. 26 is Ellie. And then that appears to maybe be a 15 over there, Calvin. That kind of looks like an orangutan, maybe. These two seem to be larger than these over here, but it's a little difficult to say. And this one over here definitely seems to be the smallest of them all. Could that be a chimpanzee? Could that be the smaller specimen Hammond that we're talking about? Well, we gave some reasons why or why not Hammond could be an ape in our overview of the teaser video. So over here we see Atrium 6 out this window. We could also see the other side of Atrium 6 from a room near the Defenders spawn. Moving on into the actual spawn room of the Defenders, we have this enormous telescope pointed at Earth, and if you step on this button here, it opens these doors, and if you step on it again, it closes them up to here. And it doesn't really seem to have any major effect on anything. If you go to this telescope, though, you are prompted to hold R, and then you can look through it, and you get to see a view of Spain and Portugal, basically. You always see the same thing, regardless of whether these doors are held open or closed more. So we've spawned in as Winston just to show you the door opening further. And we're going to take a gander through the telescope right now as that finishes opening. We hold R, and you always see the same thing. There's nothing to move around here. You see a few different potential landing sites, and you see Watch Point Gibraltar highlighted as well. We'll examine this a little bit more closely in a bit. Then we go step on this again. We close the doors. Again, they just return to basically their previous half-open position. There doesn't seem to be any point to this at all. You look through this again, and it has not changed whatsoever. Now we're going to go take a look at the last area that we have yet to explore, and that is actually outside. There are two airlocks that lead to the exterior of the map. Here is one, it opens up, we go out, and now we get to experience low gravity. Now this area is kind of disappointingly small. I suppose I understand why they did that. All there is out here is a health pack. There's nothing really more to learn here lore-wise. There's just another airlock. It opens up here, and we're back in this little room. We can actually see the two airlocks. There's no shortcut to be taken out here. It's literally just going out there to have some fun in low gravity. Jump around, fall off the map and die, or to get that health pack. This door down here does not open. We can't even push past an invisible barrier to get closer to the door. And interesting to note about being out here is that there's almost no sound. There's basically no sound. And the sound returns as you re-enter. Alright, we're going to listen to all the various new voice lines we hear now on this map. When you spawn in as Winston, there are 3 different random voice lines that you can hear, and we'll play those right now.
I wonder what's happened here since I escaped. They say you can never go home again. Doesn't look like they come in here much. They must be in another part of the base.
So again, there was a guerrilla uprising. Winston wanted no part of that. He escaped to Earth, and he hasn't been back to the moon ever since. Now, one thing that I find really a nice touch is the fact that because we see no gorillas in this area, Winston addresses it. It's called lampshading in fiction as a trope. Doesn't look like they come in here much. They must be in another part of the base. As I was going around, I was wondering, where the hell are all the apes? Well, Winston addresses this with his comment. Now, I was hoping that maybe there was some interesting interaction with the Horizon skin for Winston, in which he's wearing an actual Horizon spacesuit. I tried going around with that skin. I didn't get any new voice lines, so unless any of you have found something, if you did, please sign off in the comments, but I couldn't find anything myself. So the other new voice lines, we have one for every other hero apart from Bastion when they look through the telescope. We'll listen to these, and then we'll just comment on a couple of them that are noteworthy.
Really gives you a perspective on the world down there. What it's all about. Nah, I need a drink.
It all looks so small from up here.
The view's not bad.
Earth, I've gone through a lot for you. Hope you appreciate it.
That's something you don't see every day.
The first day or so, we all pointed to our countries. The third or fourth day, we were pointing to our continents. By the fifth day, we were aware of only one Earth.
Wow. I think I understand what Winston felt like now, looking back at the Earth from here.
The concerns of my life seem so distant from up here.
I think I can see my trailer down there.
Our world is worth fighting for.
Well, the view's not bad.
Aha, a bit more powerful than my scope.
Wow, the view is amazing.
Recording. If you will want to see this.
From here, it all looks to be so orderly and peaceful.
It all seems so peaceful from up here. It all looks so peaceful from up here.
I never thought I'd see the world like this.
Well, okay then.
The damage doesn't look as bad from up here.
It's not bad, but it's also not Hawaii.
So Zenyatta's line here is a Star Wars reference. In the original Star Wars film, C-3PO and R2-D2 are escaping a rebel ship that was boarded by Darth Vader and his goons after their ship was severely damaged by an Imperial ship. As the two are floating away in an escape pod, C-3PO looks back at the two ships and says, "That's funny, the damage doesn't look as bad from out here." Now it's not clear whether C-3PO was simply too far away to see the damage on the rebel ship, or maybe the rebel ship is so small at this distance that he mistook the Imperial ship as the ship that he was on. But either way, it's a funny line, and now I want a Zen 3PO skin.
I will never look at Tsukimi the same way.
So here Genji is saying, I will never look at Tsukimi the same way. Tsukimi is a Japanese festival honoring the autumn moon, and it literally translates to moon viewing. This festival takes place around September because ever since ancient times, this was regarded as the best time for moon viewing, because the moon would be at its brightest.
Облетев Землю в корабле-спутнике, я увидел, как прекрасна наша планета. Люди, будем хранить и приумножать эту красоту, а не разрушать ее.
So Zarya says quite a bit here, and I'm not 100% clear on the translation, but this is the best that I can get. She's saying something to the effect of, while orbiting the Earth in the spacecraft Sputnik, I saw how wonderful our planet is. Let's fight to preserve its beauty and help it grow, not destroy it. And this is either a direct quote or an adaptation of a quote from Yuri Gagarin, Russian cosmonaut and the first man in space. His quote was, "When I orbited the Earth in a spaceship, I saw for the first time how beautiful our planet is. Mankind, let us preserve and increase this beauty and not destroy it." Here's the thing though, he orbited the Earth in the spacecraft Vostok, not Sputnik. Sputnik was a satellite that launched from the same pad as Vostok, but he definitely wasn't in it. Now maybe I'm not hearing right or there's some error in translation here, but it really sounds like Zarya said Sputnik. So either this is some error on Blizzard's part, or again, Zarya is maybe not directly quoting Yuri. Maybe she herself actually orbited the Earth in a spaceship named Sputnik. It's not very likely, but it's within the realm of possibility. Zarya is a celebrated Russian athlete as well as a soldier. There's not a lot of room in her backstory to also be an astronaut, but who knows, maybe the Russians sent her into space either as a PR stunt or just as a reward for her service. If any of you watching speak or understand Russian, please let me know exactly what that quote is. Now again, looking through the telescope, this is what we see. We can clearly see Watchpoint Gibraltar highlighted. On the left, it seems like this could be Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. On the bottom seems to be Oran, a coastal Algerian city. And in the top right, this is maybe Zaragoza. but it seems pretty far off from where it actually is geographically, so there doesn't seem to be anything really of note in that area, at least today. That said, this map isn't super accurate. There's a lot of artistic interpretation, so it could just be that they moved where Zaragoza would be. But most interesting here is, note where the lights are and where the lights are not. Compare this to a modern-day light map. Where's Madrid? Where are all the big city regions that currently exist today? Is this because of the Omnic crisis? Is this what has happened to Spain and Portugal during the war? Are these areas just ravaged now? Desolate, destroyed? Now, what we gather overall from this is that Winston was likely the last to use this telescope, trying to find places to land with his rocket. He likely picked Watchpoint Gibraltar, which was an Overwatch base, and it has a landing pad, a landing and takeoff pad, which we see when we go there. And you could even see Winston's landing pod. It's in the attacker's spawn room. So it makes more sense that Winston landed here and they kept his landing pod there than that Winston had his landing pod transported to Watchpoint Gibraltar for sentimental reasons. And that wraps up this analysis video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Are you excited about the new map? Don't forget to come back tomorrow for our next video in which we really get into the science of things, praise and criticize Blizzard. We're going to talk about the airlocks. We are going to talk about, as well, the various panels and what they tell us. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch and Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Overwatch content.